everybody, so we have a fun review today as we're talking M3GAN 2.0. As some of you are well aware, I have this very toxic relationship with Blumhouse these past few years. Even despite the fact that the majority of the time these movies burn me, I just can't quit them. I'm too big a horror fan to not indulge in Blumhouse movies. However, it seems like Blumhouse has not really been connecting as much with their general audiences. Wolfman, Drop, The Woman in the Yard, they're not doing as well financially compared to previous years, where these movies would be panned critically, but they would still make a ton of money. Now, they're not making a ton of money, and usually they are critically panned. So I did have to wonder if M3GAN potentially could change that narrative for Blumhouse in 2025. Back when the first M3GAN came out in 2022, I genuinely had a pretty fun time with it. Her personality was great, despite the fact that it's PG-13, I still had fun with the slasher elements. Pretty much everything was perfectly set up for M3GAN to become this big horror slasher icon. Making it all the more confusing, they decided with this sequel to take her out of the horror genre entirely and moving her over into a more action-centric sci-fi film. Not that the original M3GAN was super horror, it was PG-13 slasher, but it most definitely was a horror movie. M3GAN 2.0 is not a horror movie whatsoever. I'm certain that's going to disappoint a lot of people because it is so weird how the movie effectively mashes together the formula from Terminator 2 Judgment Day, making M3GAN the hero fighting another robot, while also having her turn into Ethan Hunt from the Mission Impossible movies, going on this espionage mission trying to save the world being taken over by AI. There's not many instances where I've seen a horror film completely just drop everything that made their original iconic. Like, imagine if Michael Myers and everything that happened in the first Halloween was the exact same, and then the sequel rolled around and they have him trying to save the world in a crazy spy mission. It just does not make sense to me. Once that baffling shock wears off a bit, there is some entertainment in their attempt to navigate a brand new genre. The shift over into the action genre, at times I think does work, predominantly in the action sequences and the latter half of the film, the showdowns between Amelia and M3GAN. Never did I expect going into the sequel seeing a kung fu fight with upgrade style camera movements, but I attribute a lot of that to the camp factor of it all, upgrading M3GAN to the point that she's taller, has Ethan Hunt level confidence, doing death-defying gliding stunts through the sky, mixed with John Wick's hand-to-hand combat skills. That's to say, if one of the major things that you loved about the original movie was the camp factor, you're gonna love the sequel. They fully commit to the camp. While it's a tad frustrating that M3GAN is this horror icon who doesn't necessarily kill people anymore, narratively they do address that frustration. Despite that, M3GAN still is great and the predominant reason to see the film. You can imagine after the events that transpired in the first movie, she's pretty frustrated with the situation she's in. And that frustration fuels some hilarious lines of dialogue trying to convince Gemma she's not bad anymore and this tiny little robot, gradually building back these relationships so they can essentially give her a new body. If you love sassiness and shade, M3GAN throws plenty of both with the occasional creepy moment thrown in. Because this is a PG-13 movie, they are allowed one F-bomb, and the F-bomb that M3GAN gets in this movie got a huge laugh out of me. Along with when she says this catchphrase in the movie. I don't think I can actually say that on YouTube, but it'll be a cool display piece along with the M3GAN 2.0 popcorn bucket I got. Admittedly, almost all of the best moments for M3GAN are in the second half of the movie, since unfortunately they stretch far too long, the push and pull deciding whether to give M3GAN a new body or not, while also trying to unravel necessarily what Amelia's plan is and the end goal for this killing spree she's going on. When it comes to Amelia, I haven't seen Ivana Sakno in too many projects. Most people probably will know her from being the villain in the Ahsoka series along with Ray Stevenson. I wouldn't necessarily blame her wholeheartedly since most of the problems with her character in the movie boil down to the writing. As an antagonist, Amelia, for me, fell incredibly flat. She nails the cold, cerebral, intimidating part of the performance, but she's the complete opposite of M3GAN in the worst of ways. She has next to no personality, and there's nothing about her that really hooks you whenever she's on screen. If this movie was rated R, I think she would definitely have the best kills in the movie, but because it's PG-13, most of the stuff is off screen. Like, one of the instances that I thought was really amazing is she literally pulls a Mortal Kombat fatality on somebody and rips their spine out, but it's PG-13. Even the motivations for her character on why exactly she's on this mission, a lot of that stuff feels incredibly generic. Because her character is designed to not have much personality, and her kills are off screen. There's not really much as far as memorable moments for her, outside of maybe one instance in the third act where she pretty much, the best way I could describe it, goes Super Saiyan for a minute, and it's absolutely absurd. This is all besides the fact, by the way, that in the third act of the movie, her character is involved in a plot twist that is incredibly obvious. Character-wise, outside of M3GAN, most of the characters in this, I wouldn't say are bad. They're just either solid or not particularly memorable. Much like in the first movie, Allison Williams and Violet McGraw are a pretty solid duo. Their dynamic continues to be interesting, albeit I don't feel like their arcs really progress all of that much compared to the first movie. Both of them still struggle to have this mother-daughter type bond, except now Katie has learned martial arts and she is probably the only teenager in 2025 that likes Steven Seagal movies. Then there's Gemma, who at least has some level of growth between movies, mostly pertaining to learning to give Katie more freedom after being very anti-AI, leading her to trust M3GAN. AI messaging and the satire in this does give off some very mixed messages. Throughout the movie, there is this divisive nature on, is AI good, is it not? And by the conclusion of M3GAN 2.0, I feel like they're leaning in a direction I'm not particularly fond of when it comes to whether that is good or not to have AI in your life. If I were to speculate on why I don't think the movie takes a strong stance yet against AI, I think it may have to do with the fact they're doing a M3GAN spin-off movie that comes out in January that I've heard is incredibly similar to the film that came out earlier this year, Companion. Whether it was intentionally cringe or not, I actually do think Jermaine Clement's performance in this also was surprisingly funny. His character clearly is meant to be a type of parody of this mixture of Elon Musk and Professor Xavier, rich tech guy that has a Neuralink that allows him to do things very similar to Elon Musk. The man is completely cringe, but I think Jermaine Clements is just such a hilarious actor that he's able to make the material, as ludicrous as it is, work. Earlier I mentioned that the action in the latter half of the film is really good, and that's due to the fact that this movie is a very odd mishmash of tones and genres while taking far too long to get the real plot moving. M3GAN 2.0 is a little bit longer than the original movie. This one is about 2 hours long, and so much of the film's runtime is spent dragging out shenanigans, trying to be Mission Impossible. The usage of that is even the way that they factor in M3GAN having another big dance sequence. I don't necessarily feel like this movie needed to be as long as it is. It very much stretches far past its limits. By the time you get into the big third act, it goes on for far too long. They try throwing these big twists into the narrative that felt completely obvious to anyone that's watched movies before. Then the actual climax of the movie feels so over the top tonally compared to the ending of the first movie. I can only imagine how much more insane a third M3GAN will be if we're just going to keep raising the bar for how ridiculous these sequels are. In general though, I feel like if you go into M3GAN 2.0 accepting that it's more of an action movie, there's some fun to be had here. I don't think it's a great movie by any means. If I had to put a rating, a score on it, I think it's probably in the 7 to 7.5 range. Personally, I'm biased because I am a big horror movie fan. I can put my biases aside and at least have fun with the concept because M3GAN is such an enjoyable, ridiculous character. Once you get a chance to check out M3GAN 2.0, however, make sure you share your thoughts down below. What'd you think of the film? Did you like the film? Did you not like the film? How are you feeling about the genre change from a slasher movie to basically an action sci-fi film? Either way, thank you guys as always for videos. I always do appreciate it. Be sure to like on the video and also subscribe to the channel to update reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.